Hi, hello, Vinny and Dragon here, and welcome to my first video of my coverage of MMC Season 4. MMC is a Pokemon Draft League which takes place in Scarlet and Violet, and in front of me right now I have the tiers. Now, this video will be going over some of the more interesting tiering choices, as well as just my honest reaction to them. This is going to be basically blind. I've done a little bit of prep, but overall this is just going to be my honest thoughts about the tier list and what I think is going to get drafted, what I think is going to be a problem, and what I think might be overrated or might go completely undrafted. Now, if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. I'm going to be doing videos on MMC moving forward, so please make sure to tune in. I do Pokemon content all the time, so yeah, make sure to watch. I'm going to be doing them very frequently, and I really hope to sort of make my mark in this league. So thank you guys so much for any support you give this video. I genuinely appreciate it. Now, off the bat, I want to sort of talk about some of the crazy top tiers that are still around. Right off the bat, I see Blaziken is legal in this league. Now, this is the first time I've ever really seen Blaziken just be legal in a draft league. Completely legal. Speed Boost and Swords Dance are just completely fine on it. It is just 100%. Now, thankfully, Baton Pass boosting is illegal. However, Blaziken will definitely be something to worry about. That's a firefighting type that's just has some of the strongest sweep potential of any Pokemon ever, actually. Now, we're starting off really good, and let's go really bad, because next up is Iron Valiant. Why is this thing 19 points? I mean, genuinely, Iron Valiant is not better than Landorus, it's not better than Iron Bundle, it's not better than Darkrai even, like, genuinely, this thing is terrible. Like, I know it's a lot better in Scarlet Violet, but genuinely, I think Iron Valiant may be just one of the most overrated Pokemon ever. And you know what? Play this if I'm losing to an Iron Valiant any point in this week. You're not going to play this clip more than once because I'm not losing to Iron Valiant. Dropping down to the 18-point tier, we have some of the more common threats like Chi-Yu, Darkrai, and Iron Bundle. These guys are just going to do one thing and hit really hard. Darkrai has coverage, meanwhile the other two don't, but overall, that's just kind of what they're going to do. They're just going to click buttons. You have things like Spectrier and Urshifu Rapid Strike, which are also going to click buttons. And then Gouging Fire and Kyurem, who click buttons, but with a more defensive sort of side to them. Overall, everything in the 18-point tier kind of makes sense, and I don't really see anything crazy about it. Next up in the 17-point tier, I like a lot of these Pokemon. Great Tusk is probably just the best Rapid Spinner in the format, so it makes sense for 17 points. Greninja and Meowscarada are just the same Pokemon, but one's a Water type and one's a Grass type. Cinderace is also the same Pokemon, but it's a Fire type. Overall, I love all three of these. I think they're just the staples that everyone wants on their draft. In the 16-point tier, we have a little bit of interesting stuff. You have Hazard Stackers like Glyce Score, and then you have a Hazard Stacker that's also offensive like Garchomp. You have Hisuian Samurott, you have Kingambit, you have Latias, and you have Weavile. Just overall tons of really solid Pokemon. I think Galarian Slowking is a little high for my taste, but honestly, 16 points makes sense. It's a really solid Pokemon. Next is the 15-point tier, and here we have some things that are incredibly underrated. You guys noticed that I haven't talked about the Ogerpons yet, and that's because Ogerpon Hearthflame and Ogerpon Wellspring are in the 15-point tier. Ogerpon Hearthflame I used to a ton of success in MMC Season 3, and I'm honestly surprised to see it not really move. Ogerpon Hearthflame is a very solid Pokemon, and one that I personally have a very strong attachment to, so I'm surprised to see it only be 15 points. This thing is a menace. The next Pokemon I want to bring attention to is Terapagos. Now, Terapagos obviously cannot Terra, but even still, it's a great Rapid Spinner. It's got access to Terra Shell, which means you could do all types of weird shenanigans with it, and overall, I think this Pokemon is just incredibly strong. Next up in the 14-point tier, we have things like Deoxys Defense, which makes sense. It's just a bulky Psychic type. Hoopa Unbound is a little high for my taste. Pecharunt makes sense. Rotom Wash makes sense. All these bulky sort of guys make sense. You got Skizor and Skarmory and Skeledirge. Just all of these sort of make sense. Then you have Mew, which is interesting. So Mew gets access to all of the TMs, but honestly, I think this makes sense for Mew. I might get a little bit of hate for this. This might be a hot take. I think that 14 is honestly very fair for Mew. I think Mew sitting here is perfectly fine. I think that people are going to draft it and be like, oh my god, why do I have access to Mew? But honestly, Mew is fine. I think this is perfect for Mew. Kommo-o, which was one of my biggest disappointments last league, is sitting here in 13. I'm not going to draft it again. Kommo-o was solid, but definitely was a bit overrated last time I picked it up. In the 12-point tier, there really isn't that much to talk about. I kind of agree with most of the things here. I think Mienshao might be a little overrated and Toxapex might be a little underrated, but overall, 12 just kind of makes sense. All these Pokemon are just good. A couple of them maybe more good than others, like, I mean, for alligators here, but, like, aside from that, 12, it's just kind of solid Pokemon here, like Conkeldurr, Dondozo, Hawlucha, Hisuian Goodra. All these Pokemon are just good. Good job. 11 is where we start getting into some fun stuff, because we have access to Torkoal here, which putting Torkoal, the key to the Sun team in the 11-point tier is definitely an interesting choice. I don't know if I agree or disagree with it, but it's definitely an interesting one. Next up you have Rotom Heat, Ribombee, Slitherwing. All these Pokemon are just really, really good, and I think they could even move up a little bit, but 11 points is fair. You also have Pelipper, who's another key to a Rain team, and it's at 11. You have Volcanion and Vaporeon and Umbreon, which are just 3 really bulky Pokemon with a ton of support, which just sitting in the 11-point tier is just free value. And then Araquanid, which is one of the best Sticky Webbers sitting in the 11 as well. Next up is 10-point tier, and what the fuck is Amoonguss doing here? Has it been 10 minutes in the video? Can I swear? 10-point tier is gonna make me swear, because what the fuck is Lowkicks doing here too? This Pokemon is insane, this is cracked. Also, you really just had to make Porygon Z right above the Terra limit, didn't you? That's just fucked up, man. Now, next up in the 8 tier, we have access to some really, really good bulk in the form of Arboliva, Blissey, Fortress. You have things like Mesprit, Quagsire, Registeel. There is a ton of sustainable bulk in this tier. You also have access to Torterra, but unfortunately, Torterra is Terra banned because they just really don't like fun. Next up is the 7-point tier, and we're really paying 7 points for Ditto, huh? I mean, I honestly might grab it, but Ditto is just a hard Pokemon to place, but 7 points is kind of crazy. Other than Ditto, though, most of the things here are pretty chill. Chansey's here, which is funny. Duraludon with Eviolite is cool, and Gligar is also one of my least favorite Pokemon of all time, so it's also here. But overall, 7 points is fine. Next, we have access to the 6-point tier with Hisuian Quillfish rounding out the tier. It's probably one of the better Pokemon in this tier. You also have access to Electros. Emboar was actually one of the kill leaders last season, so it's very interesting to see it here. I really hope we see more Emboar success, honestly. Emboar was really cool, and it 6-0 swept me last time I faced it, so I gotta put some respect on that guy. Once we get past the 5-point tier, the tiers don't really matter. These things are just completely inexpensive, so I'll just sort of react to some of the stuff. We have Magneton, who's actually a pretty good Eviolite user, along with Quillfish. They're both just pretty solid Pokemon. Sneasel is also just a really good low-tier Pokemon that actually is really, really fast. You have things like Sableye and Base Rotom, you know, Thwackey, stuff that are just kind of not fully evolved, but have their merits and are actually pretty decent Pokemon. Moving a bit more down, you have Meowstic. I don't really have anything to say about Meowstic, it's just one of my favorite Pokemon. I want to try to use it, but god, this thing sucks. And then finally, rounding out the 1-point tier, we have access to all the same 1-pointers as last time. Now, will I draft them all? Probably not. I think that Toedscool is a bit overdone. I don't want to draft Toedscool again, even though he's such a cool guy, and I had a ton of fun using him. But who knows, maybe there's some other 1-pointers that, you know, I might think about grabbing. Anyway, are you excited for MMC Season 4? Let me know some of the stuff you want me to draft, and if you're in the league, what are some things you're looking at? What do you think is the craziest thing on this tier list? Just let me know in the comments down below. And thank you guys so much for watching. I intend to be uploading MMC once it starts weekly. I'm going to get every single video up and make sure it's the highest quality I can. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me for the journey. Let's have some fun.